Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hide and Seek, where we explore different spiritual things going on in the world, helping people to educate them on what's needed, what you could take as your next step, and helping you get through overwhelm and discomfort. So, I'd love to introduce my amazing um, friends, partners in crime, whatever we want to call each other, Alana Heim and Sunshine Lane. And so, Sunshine, do you want to share who you are and what you do?
Hello, Jacqueline. Thank you for having me here today, ladies. I am Sunshine Lane. I'm a medium, uh, energy healer, and soul spiritual life coach and author. And I love what I do for sure, for sure. So thank you.
Yeah, Alana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alana Heim, and I am a cosmic prosperity activator. My business is prosperity alignment. So, anything and everything that ties to prosperity is what I'm all about because what I know is it is within you, it's who you are. And so, I'm here to be your guide to help you shed all the many layers and help you really align and remember who you are physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
And I just had the idea to do this. These ladies, we were all in this book. So if you want to learn more about each of us, you can absolutely get that book on Amazon, The Energy Medicine Solution. So today, our topic is the question we're not asking, what's happening to our young men? And I came up with this topic because there's a lot of things that went on this weekend, not so good things, of course. And I thought maybe it's time to talk about masculine, feminine roles and how we can help people get through things and just give some new insight to ask more questions about what is really happening with our young men. How can we support them more? Um, as women, there's men in my world, my husband, my children, my grandchildren. And so, how can we understand each other more so that we can create more conscious, loving human beings in the world and spread a ripple of love and healing? So, let's see, Sunshine, would you like to share your insights? I know you always have insights.
Well, there is a lot of happening in the breaking down of the matrix and what we know. And I do believe that, when it being a woman, but speaking from like a men's point of view or a young man's point of view, we can all relate a lot of people too that are open and practicing and connected in all ways. And that is always work, right? It is never ending. It's always evolving. It's always transpiring. It's like a rebirthing at times, right? There's just so much going on. Um, and when we're not practicing being connected to all our different bodies and systems, right, it can bring in that heaviness, it can bring in that overwhelm, or it can bring in that stress. It can be bring in like, what in the am I doing here on the earth, right? And that depletion and just not desiring to be here anymore, or feeling very isolated and alone and misunderstood. So, with all of that transpiring, with that matrix breaking down and what is happening in the oneness, um, I do believe that men have always been instilled on special roles, right? They have to support the family. They have to be strong and capable, and wear everything, but not show their emotion or their feeling or what's going on. Um, and with the Matrix, there's jobs being lost. There's things are more expensive. There's countries being separated. There's people being separated. It is just exploding with a whole bunch of stress and overwhelm. So being male and with societal roles, it just adds more to what they were already feeling as far as, I have to do this role, I have to provide, I have to love, I have to. And when you think of a young man or you think of a man and how it's changed over the generations, right? It's always changing up. Um, This is more leaps and bounds for what is happening as of now, right? So it's creating them even to be more, say, defensive, more personalizing everything, wearing things more so. I work with a lot of families where their loved ones have, say, committed suicide. And the statistics that way are mostly males, right, over females, just because they're so strong on, okay, if they're going to follow through some with anything in life, right, they have a certain energy in following through with things. Um, so, yes, men have a lot of pressure and stress, just as women do, like the masculine feminine right now. But there's just so much, and they can they're just wanting to appease, but become a
Mhm.
defensiveness, personalize everything. If there's conversations around it, there may be addictions, there may be abuse, right? There may be family patterns that haven't been broken. So, yes, there's a lot of moving parts in an overall oneness right now when it comes to like masculine energy, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. So much insight in that. Alana, how about you? What are your thoughts?
There's so many. So we'll just see what spirit wants to come out. And the the big piece is this identity factor. And there's something in the warrior aspect, and there's that protector, right? So I think that was the piece that Sunshine didn't quite say, but there is like this protection factor. So yes, they're here to be provider, but to be protector is another big piece, because there's just that ego that comes out. And I think what really hits is a lot of the inadequacy and the shame and the embarrassment factors that, like, maybe as women we don't see it, but even for dads to really like beat their kid. And I've known plenty of men where it was okay to beat the son but never the daughter, and to me, that's not okay. You should never beat either of your children, male or female. But there is that factor of like, I've got to toughen you up, I've got to make you where you're strong enough. And then as parents too, what we show in our behavior is going to create that learned response in the child. So depending on and we've really, I know, like, we've evolved a lot. Humanity has evolved. I mean, I know a lot of times it's like grandparents, great grandparents, there were a lot of alcoholism, there was a lot of beating, there was a lot of abuse with the children and the women. And so a lot of that has shed, and I see more and more, like, men know we're here to protect the women and children. We're not here to rape and abuse and yell and scream and hit and beat in this way. But then I wonder, sometimes they're still going to have some of that emotion that they don't know how to get out. They feel very vulnerable. They feel like it's a weakness if they share it. So I feel like then that's just going to stay stuck inside. It's going to implode. They're going to beat themselves up. And that's when the thoughts really kick in of, I'm not good enough. No matter what I do, I'm a failure. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a fuck up. Like, whatever they've heard over and over from dad and even mom, like, you never do what you're supposed to. And, just all these responsibilities that come in. And so you have the man who's like, I'm here to really take care, but I also can't take care of me. But then I expect the woman to take care of stuff and kind of take care of me, but I don't know how to be intimate, right? And
Mhm.
be open and honest, and now communicate, this is what I need. Or, I really am exhausted, or I don't know how to change what I witnessed. And my husband and I recently had a conversation, because what I'm studying and learning, this man, he talks about what you learn as a child. That's, you can blame, if you want to go that route, you can blame your parents. But if you keep perpetuating the pattern as an adult, now you're making a choice. And it's not your parents' fault anymore. And most of the time, we still want to blame our parents. So if you are a man, and the example is for my husband, he learned the behavior from his dad where he would punch holes in the wall, right?
Mm.
So I didn't grow up with that. But like, again, this is everyone's different. And so, how do you get that anger out? And he would just punch holes in the wall. So, my husband learned that. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I don't want holes in my walls. Like, what is this? And so it's taken him to realize I learned that I don't have to keep doing that. And so it's been a really long time, but like we still have places where you can see where, well, that got patched up. And if, for me, I don't like that, but
Yeah.
he learned to change that. So he had to make the choice to say, I now know that's not a good thing. I need to find a different outlet and get my anger out. And so I think a lot of times we can say men have all of these big responsibilities, and they do, but they don't know how to release. They don't know how to express or really share, let's just say, the anger that can build up. And that doesn't mean that men only feel anger. And for my husband, he does feel a lot of anger. And he would always say, I just am angry all the time. And I'm like, I don't
Mm.
see it. You do really well of not showing it, but
Mm.
it was in there. And so even recently, when we had a big, me getting upset and kind of having an explosive moment myself, he could finally tell me that he felt hurt, and it was like such an eye-opening piece, because it was like the anger's not there. And now that the anger's not there, it's not masking. It's not just masking what's beneath anymore. Now we can actually get to, oh, you felt hurt here. Like, that's something he wouldn't say before because he couldn't get to that, or he didn't know how. But more and more, it's like having conversations or me getting upset, he doesn't have to bring a certain identity to the table anymore. He's like letting it go and actually sharing what he needs, or why this isn't okay, or what I said wasn't fair. And, a lot of it for me really stemmed from some of these roles, like whether it is in marriage, what is the male role? What is the female role? I think there's a lot of convolution. And now, with more same sex gender roles, I don't even know how that goes. But like, the reality is, we're not supposed to just be the one thing. We're meant to be all of it. We're meant to be the masculine within me and the feminine and masculine within my husband, right? Like, within every single one of us. Doesn't matter your sexual orientation, doesn't matter your gender. We're actually both pieces. And I feel like, especially where we are on the planet, this is what we all have to work to harmonize and bring in as one, because that will make such a big shift on the planet.
Mm. Thank you both for the insights. Oh my gosh, Alana. So you were the one who helped your husband understand that what he was doing wasn't normal, that that wasn't happening in every household. Um, and if a gentleman, if a guy doesn't have that counterpart, then it will just keep repeating itself. So congratulations, and
And
both
it's
of
not
you.
it's not easy, right? Because
No,
it's
it's
that
not.
tiptoe dance of like, do I say that this is not normal, and like, what is normal? You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
it really comes down to what is okay for you. And if you're
Yes.
not okay with it, then you have to express it and help them now work their way in
Through
undoing
that.
it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, in my own, in all of our marriages, right? In all the relationships, we have to, what do we do when something happens that all of a sudden I'm feeling dismissed, or I'm feeling fear, or whatever the feeling is? I just know I don't feel good. And getting to that point, there have been many times. We've been married 33 years. Trust me, there have been many times when I've had to say, and I had to grow into that person to say, what you're doing right now doesn't feel good. The eye rolling or whatever it is that they're just doing, the condescending. Um, this is where I would love every human being to get to that point, right? Where they can say, whoever is in their world, that you can safely say something to make you feel better and to explain to somebody. Because if somebody's in our world and they're doing something that makes us feel bad, if they love us enough, don't they want to know that? Right? That's what makes a loving relationship. And it's not just when our partner or husband or wife, it's across the board, right? But when it comes to men, and you guys have both brought up so many things, oh my God, Sunshine, the isolation and the misunderstanding that so many men feel. And God forbid if they show their emotions, right? God forbid if they cry. They've been raised and it's still in us that grow up, suck it up, don't cry, don't do this, don't show your emotion. Well, what do? And they suppress it, just like you explained, Alana. And that's what's happening in our world today is all these men are acting out because they've suppressed all of these emotions. It's gotten stronger and bigger after every generation that doesn't dismiss it, that doesn't work it out and have that conversation and release it. So and the alcohol, that was just a way of getting through it. But we all know people who have had alcoholic parents and they've lived through that trauma. And it's impacted their lives. And what we're doing here today is trying to have a conversation of how do we change this going forward. There's absolutely no judgment. We bring things up here to just educate and just have a conversation about it. How can we make the world a better place? Because your feelings are your feelings, whether you're angry, sad, disappointed, embarrassed, shame, feel it. And what do you want to do with it? And how can the people in your world, how can you express yourself to the people in your world so that you don't have to feel that sometimes on a daily basis so that it's not building up. So, um, back to you, Sunshine. What's coming up after all this conversation?
What's coming up? Well, I also think too, with the busyness of the oneness in the universe, in the way society has conditioned us to keep so busy so we don't do that inner work, right?
Yes.
um, that because uh, young men and men are so busy on the roles that they have been has been instilled that they need to be playing, which is false and which isn't true, they're not necessarily always taking the time for what fills them up or doing that inner work or like, say they loved hunting or they loved fishing or they love just being in the woods or they love playing. Like a lot of them aren't taking that time to do, or maybe they create and they love to do art. They're not in touch with all those different bodies and systems, right? We're soul first before anything else. And it's so ass backwards how we're trained. And we're just kind of in like a costume or a vehicle or a vessel here. Um, and like you were speaking of, Alana, like that masculine and feminine energy is within us all, right? Like I'm a medium. So when I'm connecting with somebody above, right? um, there is no masculine or feminine energy really. Like it's all combined, right? Just like at times a distortion, it's not really that. Like we don't have time concept really. It's a distortion. So it's how we function as humans to feel certain things or to be able to relate, right? Which isn't true, but so yes, there's masculine and feminine in all of us. And there's a lot of us say that where have an urge to come down here, but say there's not the right, or it's not right or wrong. They just want to get down here. So they might take a female vessel, but really it was time for a male vessel, right? So it's like a clothes. We're soul first, and then we're mind and body. Like no, we all come from the same place. We're all equal. We're all doing the same thing. Um, and we all have, like Alana was talking about, that masculine and feminine. When we're here in the physical and when we're in the spiritual, right? It's all combined. It's not separate, right? It's just a costume. It's a vessel. It's a vehicle. But we're conditioned to think, okay, yes, we have to have more male energy here, or we have to have more female energy here. And I just believe that if we're to do that inner work, which is not somebody else doing it for us, it's us doing it. And once we tap into that, it's for the rest of this lifetime. It just doesn't, we don't do so much and then that's it and it's over and done with. But a lot of males, we could view them too as, oh my goodness, they do whatever they want, whenever they want, or just different things, right? But are they taking the time to do what they love and fill up, or are they taking that shortcut? I do find that there's a lot of more support in the alcohol coming back again, right? By society. Of course, society wants you to do that. Look at when, things were shut down. I didn't believe in that a few years ago, but the liquor stores remained open, right? Right?
Did they?
Where you can, yeah, so it's always conditioned, and that's what we fall into. But it all comes down to happiness too, right? No matter if you're male or female, and you're desiring or taught or conditioned or brainwashed to think, okay, well, you hear that a happy wife makes a happy life. Well, if you're not happy, right? If somebody doesn't love themselves,
Mm,
then they can't receive. You could love somebody till you're blue in the face, but they're only able to receive the amount of love that they have within themselves from
mm,
another. The amount of love that they can give outside of themselves is the amount of love they have inside themselves, right? So, we can put expectations, and a lot of times too, male are having so much uh, feeling judged, right? How are people viewing them, right? They're viewing themselves maybe as a failure or I'm not keeping up. Or some males just don't care. They don't brush their teeth. They don't shower. They don't keep up with their clothes. So it's kind of like all over the place, right? They might not be washing their clothes. Happiness is so important. And if somebody does not have happiness within themselves, they're only going to be triggered all the time in life, right? And um, Elena, you had mentioned too that, it for relationships, that's how the kids learn from us. So if we're not expressing how we feel or can be listened to on how we feel, then how are our kids going to be able to do that? Or if we're acting out right from generations to generations and we haven't changed and maybe we're blaming, right? Well, dad was an alcoholic. That's just the way it is. I've been fine. It's been 55 years. I'm still alive. Everybody around me is alive, kind of thing. And a change is hard, but you can't change anybody else around you. You have to change yourself first. And yeah, just out there with society and all the expectations that we put on males. And then them in turn put the expectations on themselves and don't allow themselves to become raw, exposed, vulnerable, and to feel. Um, and a lot of times, if we just looked, or recalled from past relationships or our, you know, uh, intimate relationships with whoever we're involved with, a lot of times people just want to express how they're feeling to be felt. But we're so conditioned that we automatically, especially males, right? They get defensive, they turn on that anger, or they change it around automatically, and it's just a reoccurrence that they do, a programming that they do, so it gets right off topic, right? And then they
mm.
let it go. Women, if we're talking about women and men, women seem to have a file cabinet, so to speak, where every detail, everything that's taken place, they can go back to it and they can go right and pull it
Over
out.
and over
Like,
and over.
We're keeping track.
this just didn't happen. This is the thousand times it happened. Where masculine energy seems to be kind of in the flow of things, right? Trust that it's all going to go away, but it's like they write on a chalkboard and then they erase it and it's gone for a lot of them, right? So, and yeah, but just to be felt, right? Like on how you're feeling and be able to express without that defensiveness. And maybe wrapping up, we'll talk about different tools we could use that way when, you know, um, yeah. So thank you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, thank you. So much information. Alana, what's coming up for you?
When I look at the masculine and the feminine, I really see the masculine is very similar to the left brain, and the feminine is very similar to the right brain. You need both. And so, as much as we can be like, oh, I'm a left brainer, and like, how do I hold my hands? And oh, I'm a left brain. And, there is that primary. And then I think what happens in life where we feel the pressure build, men tend to sometimes really want that being right piece, which is not really important for us. But it's like if you're really, you formed this really big Grand Canyon, this neural pathway kind of, and it's not even just neural, it's just there is this biology to it of like you're going to keep going into this big canyon, and this is the propensity you're going to react from this left brain perspective. So what is left brain? It's very logical, it's very linear, it's very much we got to solve a problem. As women, we like to solve problems too, but somehow men think it's a trait for them. They have to fix it. And almost how I can show up in the world is I'm going to be your knight in shining armor, and I'm going to fix this for you. When we don't always want something fixed. And even if this is the fix you're doing isn't necessarily right, and they want it to be right. So there can be a lot of this in the left brain of analytical and structure and details and just taking action in general. And so I tend to see how this is in business, it's in our relationships, it's in the world at large, it's how our society is created. Everything is left brain. And I will tell you that through human design and astrology and some of these pieces, we're starting to shift into being right brain. So what does that mean? Well, it really is more receptive, being in flow, trusting, surrendering. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to have the answer, because when you can create the space, it shows up. And so sometimes you can say, the feminine, that's what it's like, this receptor. It's waiting, it's holding, it's the womb. It was waiting for the masculine penetration to create. And so we need both. We couldn't create a kid without both pieces. And whether you want to say in vitro, to me, that's still a masculine. You're still getting inserted. It's still, you need both pieces.
Yeah.
We forget that we are both. And so if you're not taking action and you're just sitting in space, in the void, in creation, you're actually allowing things to drop in, namely the intuition, right? So we can be more intuitive, we can be more in our emotions and our feelings, versus left brain. It wants to be more of the mind, and it wants to like make things happen or force it, right? So we're dealing with left brain force, right brain flow, which again, masculine force, feminine flow. And there's a power that I feel is the mesh of the two. And when you can release this need to be right, this pressure to get things solved and fix all the world's problems, and you come into this power piece, you start to allow things to drop in. And really, I see you start asking better questions, right? Because most of the time when you're in the left brain, you know exactly how you think the answer needs to be. So you ask the question to be like, see, I got it right. Versus what if we can ask the question differently? And this is how I see, not just for us as men and women, but in society as a whole, the systems that are all coming down, they're all to shift. We were never asking the right questions. And that meant we were never solving the right problems, or really any problems. We were just constantly stirring up the mud, thinking we're going to find the gold, and we can't see shit. It's just a big mess. So it's this dynamic. And the piece that comes through and just kind of like clarifying then is, but what are our roles, right? We've already then said, well, women are over here in the right brain world and they're in flow. And, this is the part where I keep coming back to, okay, we were the gatherers. So we still had to go get food. And then we still had to prepare it. We still had to take care of the children. We still had to educate and then clean and just all of these pieces. And sometimes it feels like when you have so much energy in a left brain masculine model of like kind of just being in the head and constantly preparing, by the time you take the action and expend that little bit of energy that's necessary for the kill to like hunt, that's it. Now they're like, whew, I'm done. And we're like, the females, we're still going, and so it's these pieces where, but what's the role and how do we help each other and how do we communicate that I need more support, or you can step up and you don't have to expend as much energy and you don't need to be here because this will drain you, right? If you were spinning in your mind of, but what if I fail and what if I don't catch that deer and what if my family can't eat and what if we're homeless? Like that's the survival stuff that now is like within your nervous system, in your body. And so when somebody interrupts that train of thought and you're trying to solve a problem, here comes your little kid that comes in. It's like, because we're just so dysregulated.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I just want to share this last piece. 2 years ago, I was in Sedona for a retreat, and it was fairly split between males and females in attendance. And what was really great was we had a feminine day and a masculine day. And we went out to the land and we got to circle up. And really this was the feminine day, the women all in the circle. And it was for us to have our own ceremony. And really we had, a sacred womb clearing and just holding the space. But what was really beautiful is how the men naturally stood behind the circle to be our protectors and to hold space in their own way. And we got to interact. There was a moment of doing an exercise where the men, we got to just vent all of our pain and suffering, whether it was ours or lifetimes or ancestors or humanity, and for them to just hold space and witness. And they said later it was really hard, right? Because it was all emotions that we had, but it was such pain and they could feel it because they've seen it or they've experienced it. But then to really be in this space to have to be a part of it, it was very cleansing, right? It was ways for us to just share, whether it was about abuse or neglect or and then when it was their turn, right, when it was their day, we got to witness them in their masculine, in their ceremony, and doing like beating on their chests and doing their thing. And really it's, again, to be vulnerable, either side, to say we are going to be in our space and let the men witness, and the men to be in their space and really be authentic and honest and allow us to bear witness. Again, holding space with total love, no judgment. That is what we're here to bring into the planet. And there are more and more men's circles. There are more and more men that are holding these kinds of ceremonies or these spaces for men so that you can truly be seen and witnessed and loved for whatever it is that you need to release. So as much as we can feel like, well, what do I do and how do we help? They're out there. We just have to look for it, right? And most of the time you won't see it unless you're ready for it. But we can also encourage the men in our lives that there are options or opportunities for them to figure out what works for them, and to allow yourself to be seen it's truly a vulnerable act. But to then realize, okay, I'm still me, I'm still a man, I may have female tendencies or really strong masculine tendencies. It's all for you to dissolve and evolve.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh my God, so much wisdom. And, I think one of the things when, so after that, after all this conversation, if you are a gentleman listening, a young man, definitely find the spaces where you can feel heard and seen and share your emotions because it is really, really important. And to know that when you're sharing that with a female, I know in my marriage, I had to learn to get rid of my tone and my annoyance, right? Of how my husband was acting or treating me. And in the beginning, it felt like he felt like I was trying to fix him. And in my healing journey, I realized that for men, to feel like they're a failure is a big deal. So, what I was doing without realizing it, he was feeling like I was trying to fix him, which meant that he was broken, which meant that he was a failure. And I'm only now like really realizing that. And that in no way was my intention. And I know that so many things in conversations can be misunderstood. So, our goal and our intention for today is for more people to have these deep conversations so that we can better understand each other and create a better place where everybody does feel safe in sharing their feelings and emotions. So, I don't want to keep anybody any longer. If we can just go around and share some tools. I know in our book, we share 24, 25 different tools. Um, some of the tools I share are EFT, emotional freedom technique, or tapping, journaling, all these ways to um, get the emotion out of your body. That's all it is. And just feeling comfortable to say, hey, I don't feel weird. I don't feel good about this conversation or what was said or what's happening in the world. And let's talk about it without judgment. And that's the most important thing. Um, Sunshine, do you want to share some of your amazing tools?
Yes, I'm just, a lot of times we can shut down before even some conversations start, right? Especially males. Like, and then you were talking about them being like kind of like open to like things have to change, but some males just don't even acknowledge, thinking that eventually the sound and the annoyance and everything is going to go away, which isn't a healthy thing, right? And
Mm.
first of all, check what your happiness is, what your love for yourself is. A lot of times we're getting triggered and we may be thinking that we're talking to that 62-year-old man or that 38-year-old man, but actually we've just triggered them into an 8-year-old that they haven't healed, right? So are you in your conditioned self? Are you in your soul authentic self, when you're trying to have these conversations? Something like, if you're doing talking to somebody that's younger that we all have parts of or the archetypes, right? Just come out of that denial about it, right? And be like, hey, I'm going to try something new. Why not try something new every day and go on a journey that you haven't experienced? It can take 25 minutes to heal an inner child thing. Or if you're in a relationship, right? Try to be aware. Are you in that conditioned self or are you in that soul authentic self? Try not to personalize it. And a lot of times there's the heart center, right? Like there's something that, if you find that there's a typical pattern when you try to speak your truth and share your truth, but then it gets so distorted, right? First of all, what would make you happy in the relation? Second of all, if you have to have an awkward, a difficult conversation and it always goes a certain way, how much life force do you want to put into that? But if you know that you've tried a certain percentage, you can always say, hey, let's have a heart-to-heart conversation here. I have something that I would like to express to you about how I'm feeling. I'm going to share it with you. And then I don't want to discuss it anymore. Let's give it 24 hours and you can tell me how you're feeling after I shared that with you, right? So they can actually feel it instead of just doing the defensiveness, which could be anger, right? Or um, getting carried away and blame or whatever, however it turns out, right? Um, if you're male or female, to if there's something that's really weighing on you, try that heart-to-heart conversation. I have something to share with. This is how I'm feeling. This is how you made me feel. We're not going to discuss it until 24 hours. Then I'd like you to come back to me. So that is a really useful tool. And two, we can't change anybody, but we can change ourselves. So if you're a male out there, and we've been told through our generations, don't air our dirty laundry. This is the way I am. You can't change. Just different things. Step into something new. If you desire like a mentor, a teacher, counseling, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just all positive. And you can't change somebody outside of yourself, but you can change yourself. So if you're in a marriage and it is difficult, there are people that work with people together, right? But a lot of good counselors, couple counselors or marriage counselors will say and notice that, okay, let's do work apart before we do it together, right? So it's always a good way to start if you do feel that you need something new in your relationship or what you're doing isn't working. There's nothing wrong with seeking outside of yourself some clarity, some help, and reaching out because your happiness is just as important as the happiness that you're in relationships with.
Beautiful. How about you, Alana?
The emotional piece, get connected. So, what I want you to become aware of is, where are your addictions? What are your numbing agents?
Mm.
Are you numbing with the mind? Like you just got to keep busy, like you got to keep going and mentally, but then you have to kind of keep doing, right? These are the overachievers, so you're going to constantly work, you're never taking a break. You can't go on vacation. You can't have a pause. You can't, like, you have to be doing something. And so that means it's because you don't want to feel. And so, where are the addictions? Sometimes it's like, if you're just not motivated, maybe you're constantly scrolling on your screen. This is just going to help you to start noticing, what are you running from? What are you avoiding? What don't you want to feel? If there is still some alcoholism or drugs or food or other things that you're also using to numb and not have to feel the body, it's time to connect. And once you do, breathe. Usually you can move through an emotion in like less than 2 minutes. It's not gonna like hold you hostage. You're gonna be free of it. But knowing also that, depending on what you love, right? So if you're more masculine and left brain, you probably are going to need some movement. Go punch a bag, like go take a bataka and just whack something and let that rage come out. Like if you're feeling it somewhere, you're just so angry, let it out. And if you're more feminine, more artistic, go paint, go create
Mm.
music. You know what I mean? Like that's where the very best creative beings usually were depressed. They had that emotional low and they would just tap into it. And so feel that and know that actually emotions are part of the creative process. There is a power that you start to connect to and you can activate. And once you feel that, man, you might have this fire in you. And if that means, great, you are going to go build this shed out in the backyard and you're just gonna take some, chop wood, and you know what I mean? Like you're getting it out, but you're also creating. You're
Yeah.
creating physically and you're allowing the emotions to really be the fuel. And that's gonna be so powerful for you.
Thank you. Oh my God, so many amazing tools. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, please comment. If you want to work with either of us, all our information are in the description, and share it with people who could use it. I know there's a lot of people who are going through a lot of different things and they could use some support. So we would love to share the likes, the comments, all of it. And subscribe to the channel. So I know we're close to the holidays. Have an amazing, amazing holiday season. We love you and we're here to support you. Have a great day.